So good afternoon everyone, and welcome to Praise and Pizza. I know we're an hour early today, but it's quite a busy day in the parish, and by 4 o'clock I do need to be in church, just having a short service to celebrate on All Saints' Day our loved ones departed. It's obviously a very odd time for us all at the moment. We're just coming to terms with the fact that the government is locking us down again, and it looks as if we're going to have to close our churches, though we are going to be allowed to keep them open just for private prayer, though not for worship. So more about that during the course of the week as we hear a bit more. But I've been asked to share with you today something on the theme of the weekend, which for youngsters, had we been not in lockdown or semi-lockdown, would have been their Halloween trick-or-treat weekend. So what I'm trying to go and do for Praise and Pizza today is share something about what Halloween is all about. But before we begin, and you'll have to get ready because of course it will be a quiz time in a few minutes time. With a bit of luck, if I can actually work my CD player, let's begin Praise and Pizza with what better than praise itself.
My soul finds rest in God alone, my rock and my salvation, a fortress strong against my foes, and I will not be shaken. Though lips may bless and hearts may curse, and lies like arrows pierce me, I fix my heart on righteousness. I look to him who hears me. Oh, praise him, hallelujah, my delight and my reward. Everlasting, never failing, my Redeemer, my God. Find rest, my soul, in God alone, amid the world's temptations. When evil seeks to take a hold, I'll cling to my salvation. Though riches come and riches go, don't set your heart upon them. The fields of hope in which I sow are harvested in heaven. Oh, praise him, hallelujah, my delight and my reward. Everlasting, never failing, my Redeemer, my I'll set my gaze on God alone and trust in him completely. With every day pour out my soul, and he will prove his mercy. Though life is but a fleeting breath, a sigh too brief to measure, my King has crushed the curse of death, and I am his forever. Oh,
So, quite a good way, I think, to open a Praise and Pizza with a great hymn of praise like that. It's great to think that actually you can sing along in your own home without breaking all the COVID rules. I think we're all finding it frustrating in church not being able to sing, but hopefully you can sing where you are. So good afternoon. I can see Yola and Ian and Anya and Simon Baker and another Anne and Christine. Anyway, good to see so many of you, and I hope my worry about trying to share Halloween and try and make it meaningful and sensible, I hope it all comes off, and the story that I've chosen, the Bible reading I've chosen this afternoon, I hope it begins to make sense. But before we get to Reverend Dree getting another difficult topic assigned to her by the team, I'm going to get an easy topic soon, definitely. We've got to start with a quiz, so come on, get typing, guys. Which country did Halloween originate in? Da, 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 da. Come on, which country did Halloween originate in? Can't see an answer. This always makes me smile because I know you'll have all typed in an answer and it just takes ages to come up on the screen for me. Ooh. Of course it will. Right, I'm going to give you the answer then because I'm going to have to move on. It says in my research, Halloween originated in Ireland. So, which church holiday is Halloween linked to? So, for example, on our news sheet in church today, on the reading sheet, it said it was a particular day. It's something something day. I'm glad Anne Baker and Simon Baker got Ireland. Thank you very much. Well done. Which church holiday is it today? So on our news sheet it would have said today is all... No, Ian, it's All Saints Day. Thank you, Anne. Great. Okay, question 3. According to superstition, if you stare in the mirror at midnight on Halloween, who will you see? According to superstition, if you stare in the mirror at midnight on Halloween, who will you see? And don't say yourself, because obviously that is, you're going to see yourself. Who else apart from yourself will you see in that mirror? Superstition, guys, not truth. No takers for this question? Right, well, according to superstition, if you stare into a mirror at midnight on Halloween, obviously you will see a reflection of yourself, but you will also see a reflection of your future spouse, your future husband or your wife. Okay, now I think Simon Baker's already got the answer to this one, so if you can see what Simon's typing on his screen, you could just look back. What is the original ancient Celtic festival where Halloween is rooted in? So Halloween has its origins in a Celtic festival I'm loving some of these answers coming up to the last question, even if none of you have yet typed in the origin of this. Yes, Ian Middleton, thank you. Yola, thank you. Andine, thank you. Yes, all of you. You have got the original Celtic festival on your screen. Thank you. Now, is a pumpkin a fruit or a vegetable? Pumpkin, pumpkin pie. Fruit or vegetable? Pumpkin pie, fruit or vegetable? Well done, Anne. It is indeed a fruit. And the last question, true or false? The largest pumpkin pie in the world that has been recorded as being made was more than 6 meters in diameter and weighed more than 350 pounds. Now, how on earth are you going to get that in an oven? I don't know. But anyway, is it true or false? The largest pumpkin pie, more than 6 meters in diameter and weighed more than 350 pounds. True or false? Before we debate if and how and when it was cooked. Yes, and it is true, because the largest pumpkin pie apparently weighed as much as 1,678 kilograms, and it was made, of course, in America, so it wasn't made here. Okay, so let's have a think then about Halloween and where we sit with it as a celebration. So Halloween, trick or treat, a time that people either love or loathe. When our children were small, Halloween wasn't quite such a celebration as it is now, such a big event. Commercially, apparently it's very much on a par with Christmas in terms of people's spending. But of course this year it's been very different, and I didn't get any scary callers at the rectory this weekend at all, hoping for a few treat sweets and then knocking and saying, are we allowed to knock at the rectory door? Are you allowed to open the door to trick-or-treaters? So the answer to that is yes, the rector is allowed to open the door to trick-or-treaters, and yes, she always does have sweets in for you every year. But that doesn't mean to say I don't have some quite strong views about Halloween, and I want to just give you a different interpretation today. I know that there are many Christians who think the whole festival should never be celebrated at all. They're very anti it, and they think there's a very real danger in celebrating Halloween, leading young people into darkness. So let's just look for a minute about the history of it. It was rooted in a pagan festival, and it's a difficult one to pronounce because the dictionaries that you get out call this festival by various different names. So if I've mispronounced what I would call Samhain, but it isn't, it's Samhain, it's a festival that means summer's end. And what is being celebrated, or what was being celebrated, was the end of the light half of the year before the beginning of the dark half of the year. So let's hold on to those words for a minute, light and dark, because I think they're quite important. Last week, of course, our clocks went back for autumn, so we know all about days growing shorter and darker. But the Celts believed that on this night, on the night of All Hallows Eve, the barriers between this world and other worlds became so thin that all sorts of spirits, good and bad, could pass through. And they believed that the ghosts of the dead could return to the earth. Now, I do believe there are such things as thin places, but perhaps I think of thin places rather differently than the Celts had done. I think thin places are where heaven and earth meet. Anyway, these Celts carved vegetables. They carved turnips and not pumpkins as we do. And they made faces in them, and they put some sort of lights and candles in them, and they put them at places outside their house to ward off evil spirits. But they also lit massive bonfires in the centres of their communities, and families would take stock at this time of the year of the food that they needed to get them through this coming dark half of the year. And there were real links with harvest and storing provision for winter months. Now, as you can imagine, as the centuries went by, the celebration became another one that Christianity took over and offered a different perspective. At one point, Halloween was celebrated in May because that was a time that was designated for this. But in the 9th century, Pope Gregory moved the celebration back to the time of the old fire festivals and declared All Saints' Day on November the 1st and All Souls' Day on November the 2nd. So All Saints and All Souls are being celebrated across the land in Christian churches this weekend. And for us, they're the days when we remember those who have died, in particular in the last year. And as I said, I'm sorry we're an hour early today, but in a few minutes' time I've got to hot-foot it down the road to Bassingham, because I will be meeting with particularly people who've lost loved ones this year. But every year we read out quite a long list of names that people specifically ask to be remembered at this time, because people want to give thanks for their loved ones. And year after year, families come and just have a quiet time of remembrance. We're not alone in such times of remembering. This will happen all over the globe. For example, if we lived in Mexico, because Mexico came up earlier on the screen, so I'll mention Mexico, it would be a time of celebrating the Day of the Dead, and food would be taken to cemeteries for ancestors to consume. There are some very unusual traditions surrounding this time of year. And over the centuries, lots of stories and traditions have arisen around Halloween. In particular, many had ideas about helping young people find their future spouse. Now, we've already had one tradition: look in the mirror at midnight and you will see your spouse there. And the idea was that by luck, by the time Halloween came round the next time, you had seen your spouse in the mirror and you would then be married. In 18th century Ireland, there was this tradition: a matchmaking cook might bury a ring in her mashed potatoes on Halloween night, hoping to bring true love to the diner who found it. Well, let's hope it brought true love rather than choked them. In Scotland, fortune tellers recommended that an eligible young woman would get a pile of hazelnuts and name each one of her suitors on these hazelnuts, and then she would toss these hazelnuts into a fireplace. And the nut that burnt to ashes, rather than popping out of the fireplace or exploding, apparently represented the girl's future husband again. But then in some versions of this tradition, the exact opposite was true. The nut that burned away symbolised a love that would never last. And then young women tossed apple peel over their shoulders, hoping that the peel would fall on the floor in the shape of their future husband's initials. And I have to say, this is all very, very strange to me, and I'm very thankful I didn't have to do any of this tossing apples over my shoulder or burning hazelnuts in fire grates. And I'm just very grateful today that I've been happily married to somebody that I didn't see in a mirror at midnight for 42 years. So thank you, Michael, for sticking by me for all those times. So, very, very odd old wives' tales, but I want to leave the history and those tales aside, But it strikes me that there is something really significant about this time of year and this time of remembrance. I think we're in a season of All Saints, All Souls, when we're being invited to reflect on life and on death, and actually on the dance between the two. And thinking back to the world of nature, which the Celts and others did, nature has offered up her harvest to us already. And the leaves have now started to fall very heavily from the trees. And although I know farmers will be replanting almost as soon as one harvest is over, nonetheless, for people like us or people like me, the ground in our garden at the moment is a place that we're now preparing for winter sleep. And for most of us, over the next few months, the ground becomes seemingly barren, unyielding, and dead. So the grain that gave us life, but in sharp contrast with the riches of the harvest, as I cut away in our garden dead branches and prune back for winter, those very secateurs that I am using, I find quite interesting. In many ways, they are a sign of death, cutting away of dead wood. But then, like those early Celts, I think seasons and boundaries blur a bit. And the Celts saw this Halloween as a night when darkness, which was kept at bay for most of the year, was somehow let loose again. Light and dark I've been reflecting on, life and death. And I'm finding that the edges are very blurry. So I've been thinking and praying this week, and I want to share this particular story. And it's the story of Legion. And I guess for this time of year, one thing strikes you about it, or strikes me about it, is it's set in a very appropriate place because it's set in a graveyard. So let me read to you, please, from Mark chapter 5. They went across the lake to the region of the Gerasenes. When Jesus got out of the boat, a man with an impure spirit came from the tombs to meet him. This man lived in the tombs, and no one could bind him any more, not even with a chain. For he'd often been chained hand and foot, but he tore the chains apart and he broke the irons on his feet, and no one was strong enough to subdue him. And night and day among the tombs and in the hills he would cry out, and he would cut himself with the stones. When he saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and fell on his knees in front of him. And he shouted at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? In God's name, don't torture me." For Jesus had said to him, "Come out of this man, you impure spirit." Then Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" "My name is Legion," he replied, "for we are many." And he begged Jesus again and again not to send them out of the area. A large herd of pigs was feeding on a nearby hillside, and the demons begged Jesus, "Send us among the pigs, allow us to go into them." And he gave them permission, and the impure spirits came out and went into the pigs, and the herd, about 2,000 in number, rushed down the steep bank into the lake, and they were drowned. Those tending the pigs ran off and reported this in the town and the countryside, and the people went out to see what had happened. And when they came to Jesus, they saw the man who'd been possessed by the legion of demons, sitting there dressed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. And those who had seen it told the people what had happened to the demon-possessed man, and about the pigs as well. And then the people began to plead with Jesus to leave their region. As Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who'd been demon-possessed begged to go with him. But Jesus did not let him. He said, "Go home to your own people and tell them how much the Lord has done for you, and how he has had mercy on you." So the man went away and began to tell in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and all the people were amazed. Wow, well, what a story for a Halloween weekend. We've got a graveyard and a man who for years had simply lived among the tombs. A dark place to live, a place surrounded by death. A man who lives there not at peace in the place at all. Everything about him and the place has a sense of chaos. We've got dark and shadows, we've got fear, we've got the unknown. As I said at the start, it could almost be a stage or film set for a modern Halloween special. The man was definitely not at peace with himself or the world he inhabited. And in the time of Jesus, in the time when this story was originally written, he would have been thought to have been possessed by unclean spirits. And so he lived in the most unclean of places, among the dead. Darkness and death, but look who enters the scene. Light and life, personified in Jesus. Jesus, the man who is very, very familiar with unclean places. Jesus, a man who actively seeks out unclean places, and these places hold no fear for him. Places of death, places of sickness. He touches lepers and women who are unclean with blood issues. He befriends and he eats with unclean prostitutes. He brings his beloved friend Lazarus back from the grave, still in his grave clothes. Yes, Jesus is very familiar with places that would have been regarded as unclean. A man who actively seeks out unclean places, and these places hold no fear for him. So the man who lives a chaotic, dark death surrounding his very life suddenly bows before Jesus. I'd love to have seen that moment. And Jesus says to him, "What is your name?" What is your name? We say it all the time. It's a normal opening question in routine conversation. But in this context, apart from being a normal question, it becomes a normalizing question. And this normalizing question changes absolutely everything. Because when we name something, it loses its power and our fear is dispelled. "What is your name?" Jesus said. "My name is Legion," the man answers, "for we are many." Darkness and light, death and life. The edges definitely are blurring. Have you ever felt anything like this? The moment of finally finding a name for the secret part of yourself that you've been hiding away. Naming a hidden fear. Naming an unuttered worry that's inhabiting a dark place inside you, and perhaps a little bit like Legion, eating away at your very core. And then somebody asks you to name it, and in that naming, the darkness lifts. So I'm going to be a bit controversial, and you might all never speak to me again, but I actually think Jesus would have been okay with us thinking about Halloween. And Jesus was a great party goer and fun lover, and I think he would be okay with children trick or treating carefully. Because it's a night when we can not only name our fears, but it's a night when he calls us to act them out. We can put them on and look at them in the mirror, not seeing a future spouse lurking there by the way, but we could be surprised at our own reflection. To face the fears, the places we keep hidden. Darkness and death will now meet light and life. And suddenly that symbol of the pumpkin with the lights behind it takes on not a sinister meaning for me, but actually light as a symbol of hope. It takes on an entirely different hue. This is why I find this whole season is one where preconceived ideas and preconceived images do tend to blur. Light dispelling darkness, just as the one and only light of the world, the light that came that can never ever be extinguished, asks us the same question that he asked Legion. What is your name? Those early Celts believed that on Halloween we let the boundaries between this world and the next world grow thin. And the darker side of things are let loose on the world. And it's a night when they let death roam free. But we're not afraid. Because I think we see thin places. Not where things roam free to terrorise us, but I think we see thin places, or I certainly see thin places, as places where heaven and earth meet, where light is breaking through. We're not afraid, we're called not to be afraid. In a moment I'm going to be with people who are recently bereaved, and I will say again, death has no power over us. So, trick or treat. In Christ, the light and the life that overcomes darkness and death is the treat that awaits all who truly believe. What we're being offered is an unbelievable treat of eternal life. So I leave you with this. Jesus, light of the world, knew all about the dark side of things. He didn't flinch away from it. He met dark head on. He knew all about thin places between this world and the next. He knew all about graveyards. In fact, I have heard tell he stayed in one himself for 3 whole days. But in the end, it had no power over him. He played the ultimate trick on death. Because in his death, we have life, and we have light, and we have all of that in all of its fullness. So thanks be to God for sending us the light of the world. Thanks be to God for asking us to face tricky questions. What is your name? Let's not fear the dark places. Let's face the dark places with light. And perhaps next year, when our youngsters are out on the street again, let's greet them with light. With lights blazing behind us in our homes. Let's greet them with a smile. And perhaps as we give them the treats that they come quite innocently, many of them, just to come and ask for. You don't have to be a priest to say, God bless you, as they leave. You can be anybody. So please, send those children away next year with a smile on your face, with the light of your home behind you, with the light of Christ shining in your face, and go for it. Say, God bless you on your journey. So, as I say, sadly I'm going to have to leave you quite quickly, but if I can work out my CD player and find my piece of paper where I actually wrote the number of what I want. Yes. We talked about name, and Jesus asked that very simple question, what is your name? So I'm going to leave you today listening to another one of my favourites. It's great being a vicar, isn't it? You can choose all your favourites and nobody moans at you. And so, track number 13. Your Name. Stronger Than I Know.
Lift up your name. Name above all names. Your name is stronger than I know. It's deeper than 1,000 words could say. Your name, fire in my soul.
So as I leave you now, take care. God bless. We've just honoured the name of God. Don't forget, whoever asks you what is your name, you can also confidently reply, I am a son, I am a daughter of God. What a family we are adopted into. So God bless, take care, look forward to being with you. I guess the next time I'll be with you, it will actually be Advent Sunday. So I'll be thinking, no doubt, about lights in a different way. So until then, take care. And sorry to have to rush, but as I say, I have 15 minutes to get to another service. So as I'm running, could you please pray that I get there and don't look too dishevelled. Bye.